Do I have to start my own applause? It's always awkward walking up in silence. Thank you, thank you. What a great welcome. So thank you very much for coming. I don't know if I've ever, maybe my wedding, other than my wedding, I don't think I've ever looked forward to an event this much with so much emotion and preparation. And so to think about talking about things like life change, it's definitely more than just a phrase. Hope and restoration through Jesus Christ is definitely more than a slogan. So I often joke that as development director, that I'm tasked with boring people like you to death and begging for money. It just comes with the trade, I guess. And if you can think of any better jokes that I can tell when I speak publicly, I'd appreciate it. I haven't found any funny jokes about homelessness. They just don't land well. But that joke couldn't be further from the truth, because the truth is I have one of the best jobs that there is. I get to work every day with walking success stories. Many of our graduates, as Sherry said in the video, join our staff, and I often tell them that if it wasn't for you, for your commitment, for your resolve, for your faith, I wouldn't even work here. For the next few minutes, I do want to talk about homelessness. And I don't know about you, but it does seem like maybe we should have solved it by now, right? I mean, I'm only 33, but how long have we been talking about this issue? Someone recently was like, it's white noise. It's like, homelessness, it's still around. And I mean, I hear it all the time, the solution being, if more people would just give more homes, there'd be less homeless. It's like, yes, I see that. I just wish it were that simple. Matthew 25 is a very familiar story for some of us. In there, Jesus says, "For I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me a drink. I was a stranger and you invited me into your home." Into your home, man. "I was naked and you gave me clothes. I was sick and you cared for me. I was in prison and you visited me." And they reply and they say, "Lord, when did we ever see you like that? When did we ever see you in that condition?" And he said, "Whenever you did one of these things to someone overlooked or ignored, that was me. You did it to me." I've got to tell you, it's not as easy as it once was to know who is overlooked and who is doing the overlooking, who is ignored and who is doing the ignoring. And I'll explain what I mean. For the past few months, I've been making the rounds to various service clubs and other groups to discuss what's helpful and what's what's helpful and what is harmful when it comes to our response to homelessness. One morning, Gracie's one of our graduates and on staff. We went to the Breakfast Rotary at the country club. And after the presentation, this older gentleman, sometimes people want to come and share their own story, about how that topic affected them, right? So I could tell something was on his mind. He was making his way very intentionally, a certain look on his face. I just knew I was either going to get hit with punches or tears. I just wasn't sure. I couldn't read him. So when he got to me, he looked me in the eye and he said, "I lost my son to a heroin addiction." And he paused for a minute, and I just wasn't sure what was coming next. And he said, "Thank you for what you're doing." And then he mentioned something to the effect of, "I wish my son had less people giving him what he didn't need."
Here's $1. Stay homeless.
Oh, I have $1. Stay homeless.
Stay homeless.
We all want to help, but let's give what's really needed. Learn more right now at helpthathelps.org. Together, we can see lives changed.
That commercial pretty much stems from that man's story and a lot of others that are similar. People that have to live that with family or themselves. You have to go through that, and people essentially giving them the meats to get their next fix and keeping them in their addiction a little bit longer. So, moving on, I can't tell you how many times lately that people have asked me, is it just me, or does it seem like there are more homeless people than ever lately? Just yesterday, I got a call from a woman who asked me, for homeless people I meet who don't want to come to the mission, what other programs are there? And I thought, wow, the least of these among us certainly do have quite a few services to utilize or overlook. Someone recently told me a story about their leftover sandwich that they attempted to give a homeless man outside of a restaurant. His response, I'm waiting for something better. It's not uncommon for people to call the mission, possibly on their free government cell phone, and see what's on the menu for dinner, just in advance, just to see if they're in the mood for that. Fugazi has been serving dinner once a week for years, and sometimes we hear people say, Fugazi's again? After beginning my time with the mission at Oval Park, I got a crash course in homelessness, drug use, drug sales, and even one situation of severe PTSD with a 25-year-old Army veteran. One day at the park, a very nice elderly couple brought some sack lunches. This is very common to hand out to people there. I approached the gentleman and I attempted to explain how there are actually two options for meals within walking distance of that park. We have us, the mission, just 2 blocks up Northeast First, and then Bethlehem Center is just a little bit further, and they also serve meals. And you see that in all the interviews I've done with our graduates, there's only one common denominator in all the stories, whether it's a 20-year-old, a 60-year-old, listening to their very different stories. The only thing that's the same is when they say, I had to hit rock bottom. So I took that lesson and I attempted to explain rock bottom to this gentleman. And he listened very patiently, and then he said, it's not for us to judge, it's for us to give. And I knew what he was referring to, right? That's a pretty common verse. Matthew 7, don't judge others and you will not be judged. Oh, okay. Man, just keep doing your thing, I guess. I can't judge you, you can't judge me. To each his own. I thought a lot about that, and then I found another verse. Stop judging by mere appearances, but instead judge correctly. If that man would have stayed around a little longer after handing out those lunches, he would have seen the recipient of one of those meals put a needle in their arm. I wish he would have judged correctly. In all fairness, though, I don't really judge correctly either all the time. Many of our success stories don't start out that way. They come broken, they come dirty, rude, and just generally rough around the edges. I judge them often as lost causes. But thanks be to God that He's not leaving me in charge. Thanks be to God who gives life to the dead and calls into being that which does not exist. In a culture where to each his own is king and mind your own business is queen, it's more important than ever to serve the least of these in our community within a healthy context. I can't tell you how many times a man or woman came for a meal and stayed for our program. I've heard a few different times that they would just sit outside our kitchen and see the men and women in the program, and they would say, I just wanted that so badly. They'd see just the joy and the camaraderie, and they would say, I couldn't remember the last time I felt that. Something so simple as joy. It wasn't theology. It wasn't some big, God moment. It was just a smile. And that will not happen if we take people room service all around town. What is the context that they need to take the next step? We will always serve the least of these in our community for 3 reasons. The first, People are not starving or dying on the streets of Visalia, and we want to keep it that way. I think we all do. Second, in doing so, in serving the way we do, we serve Jesus. And third, it allows all of you to direct needy people to a place to find hope and ultimately whole life restoration.